And welcome back to Lesson 7, Market Analysis and Forecasting. In this lesson, we will talk about how to conduct a market analysis, which, if you're a real estate agent, this should be easier than harder. And we'll also help make some data-driven decisions about whether or not you should pursue that first development. We will analyze demographics and show you how you can use demographics to your benefit, as well as help with any kind of market forecasting or really understanding what the market is doing in your area before you embark on a development journey with a particular property. So let's get started. Now, in all that I've taught you so far, I've talked about making sure you understand what you're getting into before you get started. That is no different from a marketing perspective with a real estate development that you're proposing. You want to understand, can the market even sustain what you are proposing doing on this project or on this property? Just because you want to build 5 million apartments doesn't mean that 5 million apartments will be leased in time for you to make a profit and not go belly up, right? Now, I know that's an extreme example, but you get my point. You don't want to build something just because you want to. You want to make sure the market can sustain whatever it is that you're going to build. So to create a basic market analysis, and if you see on the right, the image that I have here, that is my first, well, not my first, but it is an example of an executive summary on one of my first projects. That particular executive summary summarizes all of the things that we've been talking about from an engineering, zoning, site planning, and site evaluation perspective, as well as a cost and budget perspective. It's 4 simple pages, so it's not a full summary, but it is an executive summary that gives an investor or a bank a very small snapshot about what's going on with that particular project. Now, I only included the executive summary because, as I mentioned, it's just a snapshot. If you're going to do a larger market analysis report, you can make it as big as you want. And if you work for a company that maybe has tools and has resources to be able to do this for you, or you have a great assistant who can do this for you, then perhaps this can be the outline that you model and follow. So what should be included? As I mentioned, the executive summary. You also want to include a market overview. What's currently happening in the market right now in this area where you plan to build. What's going on with your target market analysis? So who is your target market? Who is your ideal customer for this project? Is your ideal customer a tenant who makes between this amount of money and that amount of money? Is your ideal customer a business because you're building a strip mall or some type of commercial entity? Is your ideal client a business who has medical, a medical practice of some kind, and that's your target tenant? Is your target audience a, person or a family or a group of people who need single family housing? Whatever it is, understand your target market, and whatever it is, understand your target market and include that in your report. What is the competitive analysis? How many other people out there are building the exact same thing as you? And I will tell you, a great place to know what's happening and maybe what hadn't been fully advertised yet is by those relationships you built with the city and the county, and by going to public meetings. When you see who's out there saying, hey, I'm going to build this over here, can I get your approval, city? Or I'm going to do this over there. You start to really see and hear what other developers are doing out in the marketplace. And that can help you with your competitive analysis. You also will then be able to see what ads are being placed online, what people are showing on social media for that particular area, so that you can see who you are competing with. There was a time in my city where we saw one new apartment complex come up every so many, years. Then we went through a time where we saw about 5 in 1 year. So I started paying attention to anytime I saw large plots of land. Well, first you see the big Z sign, but anytime I saw large plots of land and a lot of red dirt, I knew an apartment complex was coming. So these are signs that something is happening. Make sure you understand what's happening with the competition in the area where you're planning to develop. You want to do your market price analysis. How much can this property rent for or sell for? And know that going in as you're preparing this report. You want to do the site analysis that we talked about way a long time ago. Location factors, how close is it to any of your amenities or the highway or anything that a client or a potential target market, person would need. Make sure you understand how that impacts him or her or them, and then include that in your market analysis report. You want to do a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths of this area? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? And what are the threats? And then, of course, you've got to include the financial projections. You cannot start a project without understanding the money, the cost, and the budget. And we've discussed this ad nauseum. Make sure you understand how the money works with the project and whether or not it will perform. And lastly, any kind of risk to the market, any mitigation strategies you need to make sure you're accounting for as you are developing, know those too. All of that information goes in this basic market analysis. Sometimes the bank will ask you for this. Sometimes a lending institution will ask you for this. Other times, investors just want to know, especially if they're getting ready to put some skin in the game. So make sure you understand what's happening as you prepare your basic market analysis report. And here are some tools that can help you, especially with demographics. Look up the census. What does the last census show you about that area in terms of the diversity, in terms of the growth and the potential growth of certain age groups and certain, people who may need certain things. Sometimes you have a lot of retirees moving into your area. So would it make sense to build a bunch of apartments without elevators? Maybe not. Would you need to maybe look at senior living facilities or senior, accommodating facilities? Probably so. So there are many factors that can change with your project if you understand just the census. Another tool is RPR. That is Realtors Property Resource. Although only available to realtors, it's still a source or resource that you can use to help you on the go. There's an app you can place on your phone, and it can quickly give you an analysis of any property in the entire United States. So this is a beautiful tool that we as realtors can use. Okay. You also can use other, standard consumer-based sites that can help you evaluate a particular project or evaluate the market and see how the market is performing in that particular area. That includes Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor.com, the forward-facing public side of Realtor.com. Any one of these resources can give you a very quick snapshot. Now, it's not 100% accurate. Nothing is 100% accurate. That's why you want to use multiple resources to create that market analysis, that value that you're trying to obtain. Make sure you use multiple places to create that, as opposed to trying to say, okay, if Zillow said it, then it must be 100% true. Well, balance that with, what does RPR say? What does the census say? What does Redfin say? What does Realtor.com say? And then work with a few other professionals to determine what that value is. But make sure you truly understand the market before you start developing. Because if you build something and it should have never come in this area, but there were warning signs, and all you wanted to do was build what you wanted to build, then you've just made a huge mistake. Okay, so make sure you build out all of these pieces of information in your market analysis.